Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart. Today, I'll be breaking down this two-game NBA playoff slate here on DraftKings with $100,000 up top to first place, going through my favorite early little core plays as well as a potential lineup build, game by game breakdown, all that good stuff in this video. Make sure to check out my Patreon for more updated core plays closer to lock when I give all the updates of who I'm targeting, why I'm targeting, all that good stuff. So make sure to check out my Patreon link down below. Check out my Price Picks video after this. Hit that like button and subscribe. Do really appreciate all the support. If we get another 50 likes on this, that'd be great. Three days in a row, that'd be huge. So thank you guys. And let's get into this breakdown. Before we get into the breakdown, I just want to quickly recap my lineups from yesterday. So was able to get into that last game for the showdown slate. Wanted to get into the big 100K to first, but unfortunately I was a little late to reserving a spot. So I just did a $5 single entry. Was able to double up my money there, even with Andrew Wiggins being pretty disappointing. There was my lineup. And then well, didn't cash yesterday in the main slate. Just a frustrating day overall. Pretty annoying because in my Patreon, I talked about 2 nights ago how I really like James Harden as a bounce back candidate for that game, and he dropped an 80 bomb. Last night, I talked about on my Patreon how I really like Steph Curry. I thought he could be the same thing as James Harden. What did he do? He dropped an 80 bomb, and I just didn't play him. I also talked about how I really like Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. Of course, Brunson is the one that goes for 55. Randle fouls out, goes for 33. Who else here? Austin Reeves finally had a solid game there. Draymond Green was very frustrating. Just didn't do a ton there. Wiggins was just he played 40 minutes. It's just the most frustrating. He plays 40 minutes finally, and of course he starts off the game with two fouls, two turnovers. I'm just like that's classic. Yeah, did nothing the rest of the game there, even in 40 minutes of playing time. The dude was a .65 fantasy point per minute guy last night. It was just frustrating there. Jimmy Butler was actually very solid. Gabe Vincent once again could not hit a shot. He got benched in that fourth quarter, and Kyle Lowry was actually pretty decent there. But yeah, if you want to see the winning lineup here, it was 325. It was Jalen, as I mentioned. Really liked him. Of course, had him. I went to the wrong player with Randall, Gary Payton, Grimes actually did decent. Jimmy, Draymond Green, Steph went for that 75 bomb. Lonnie Walker. Don't even get me started. Like, of course, Lonnie Walker has like a historic career game off the bench in the fourth quarter. Like, what? Like I talked about how like yeah, I mentioned he could be a guy. Of course, people jam him in 25%, just hope and pray to God that he gets a few minutes. Of course, he can't miss a shot, so he gets extended for like he almost got more fantasy points than Andrew Wiggins. It makes no sense. And of course, I talked about this last time on Twitter. Um, of course, Max Struess is 33% owned in my single entry, randomly 33% owned, just randomly. What do you think he goes for? A 30 bomb. What did I get him in the first round against the Bucks? 15% owned. How much fantasy points did he go for? -1. Played 18 minutes, finished the game with -1 fantasy points. Did not record a stat besides 2 turnovers. So yeah, it was just frustrating over all around. I talked about how I didn't like the value yesterday. Of course, all the value went for like 20 plus each. It helped out that Gary Payton became available and was a starter and actually did very solid. But of course, like DiVincenzo, Gary Payton, Grimes, literally every single value play like under 4,000 went for like 20 points. So it was just like, of course, of course, it just ruined the balance build. But yeah, looking forward today. We have a 2 game slate. Can't wait to watch these 2 games. Should be great games. Um, and this has kind of turned into that slate where people are going to jam in at least 3 of these stars from this second game here between Jokic, Booker, Durant, Murray. It makes sense. As I talked about in my Patreon write ups, the 2 guys for Phoenix are pretty much 95% of that offense, if not 99% of that offense. And the same thing for Denver. Jokic and Murray, 95% of that offense, if not closer to 99%. So it's like it makes sense to want to get at least one piece from each team. I've talked about that in the past 3 games for uh, this game here with Phoenix and Denver. I said you want to have at least one of Durant and Booker, and then one of Jamal Murray and Jokic, if not both. Like obviously you can't play both from each team, but you could play both from obviously Phoenix and put one of the Denver guys in and do the opposite there. So I know that's gonna be a very popular play tonight. There's not a lot of value once again because these 2 teams here, especially on these 2 teams, because the whole offense is around 2 guys. Philly, it's slightly more spread out, and I'd say Boston is the most spread out. So it can you can make it work, but yeah, I do think a lot of people will go to that kind of stars and scrubs, playing at least 3 stars from this last game. So if you want to get different, you can start off with this first game here. Joel Embiid, he's been pretty low owned the past few slates, and he's been doing very, very solid. As you can see, 39 minutes, went for 61, 30, 13, 3 and 4 blocks. And then the last game did go to overtime. So I'd expect closer to like 39, 40 minutes for Joel. But he did shoot over 20 times, 12 of 15 from the line. He went for 34, 13 and 4, 58 fantasy points. So once again, he comes in at a solid price tag. The center position's pretty weak besides him and Jokic. It really drops off as we can see here. We'll just look at the whole center. Horford will be a super popular play. Ayton will be very contrarian, and then it really drops off to some value plays that aren't all the best. People will jam in Jock Landale. We'll get to him in a minute, but yeah, so very weak center position for tonight. I do really like Joel Embiid as like a pivot play off of like the chalky stars from that second game, because we know he has the same amount of upside, and they're going to need him. So really like him. James Harden, of course, I talked about him as a bounce back candidate. Goes off for an 80 bomb. It's just like really, come on. But we know that he has that upside against, that upside along with Joel Embiid. So it's like once again, I still think James Harden's a very solid play at 8-8. Um, he'll be a little bit more popular today than he was last game, but still, I think he will be lower owned compared to those other stars. Maxi, I think he's a solid mid range play. He played 45 minutes, still wasn't the best, only 32 fantasy points. In a close game, in a competitive game that doesn't go to overtime, he should see probably closer to high 30s, maybe 39, 40 at most. So I think he's a solid play in the mid range. If you want to get different from the field and build a more balanced lineup, he's definitely one of your best options. Tobias Harris, a decent mid range option, 45 minutes, just did absolutely nothing. Yeah, more, he's a lot more riskier than Maxi if you want to, get to the mid range play, but he's definitely viable. He could definitely go for a double double if he's actually playing very solid. So he's there, looks decent. Melton, 4,600, just a little bit too pricey for me. Played solid minutes, just wasn't productive. Only took 2 shots in 25 minutes. But we know he's upside if he can get extended, if there's some foul trouble with one of the guards in the starting lineup or like a Tobias Harris, he could get extended and do solid. So I guess he's okay there. Don't love him. And then PJ Tucker, worth a dart throw. If you want to take that route. And then same thing with Niang. He played 19 minutes, was pretty much the only guy off the bench there to play for the Philly side in the last game. So once again, don't love it, but if you want one of those dart throw considerations, you can look to him. Moving on to the Boston side, as I mentioned, Boston's a lot easier to get a few pieces from. They're pretty, they are top heavy with Tatum, Brown, but as we know, Horford, Brogdon, Smart, White, they all have upside here. I mean, Horford's gone for 35 plus the past 2 games. Brogdon, pretty much the same thing, 30 plus pretty much every game so far in the series. Smart, he's playing huge minutes. He went for 30 plus probably the past 2 there. And then Derek White, he's the one who's been really, really, really struggling the past few games there. Pretty much the past, 5, 6 games here, he's been struggling. So we know he has upside there. And it's just one of those things that's like, you can get a lot of pieces from this Boston team just because they all have a lot of decent upside and they all come at a pretty cheap price tag. So for Tatum, 9.6, once again, I think it looks very solid. The offense obviously runs through him. He has double double upside, triple double upside. So I think Tatum's a very, very solid play, especially if you want to pivot off of like Durant and Booker, who will be super chalky. Tatum's one of your main guys to go to. I really like Jalen Brown here. I talked about how he needs to be more aggressive. He's just not really shooting the ball. Like he's shooting the ball great, but he should be shooting 20 plus times. So I do like a bounce back spot here for Jalen Brown. Not like he's been doing bad, but I expect him to bounce back in terms of just being ultra aggressive the whole game and not really falling off after like one quarter of being aggressive. So I think we can expect closer to 40 minutes from Jalen Brown here if he stays out of foul trouble and him to be super, super aggressive. So I really like him right now at 7,900. That's a very, very solid price tag to get him at. Horford looks like a very solid play. The Celtics ran a very, very tight rotation this last game here. They ran their main starters of Tatum, Brown, Horford, Smart, and White. And then off the bench, they played Brogdon. He played 36 minutes. Obviously, that game went to overtime, so he would have been closer to 30. But he played, a lot of minutes. And then Robert Williams and Grant Williams are the 2 other guys off the bench there. Robert only played 14. Grant Williams only played 12. So those minutes went for both of them went down a lot. They really just relied on the starters because they were doing well. So definitely keep that in mind. I don't think it's a thing that will continue to happen, especially if someone gets in foul trouble. They're going to need to go to, one of these guys off the bench. Obviously, Brogdon will be the main guy. But then let's say like Brown, Tatum, Horford, one of those guys in foul trouble, they'll throw in Grant Williams, they'll throw in Robert Williams. So I do think they're both still viable there as some value pieces that I don't mind getting to. So moving on to Horford, if he gets in foul trouble, Rob Williams is a solid backup plan. Um, solve more minutes because of that overtime. Should see around 30 to 33 minutes if he stays out of foul trouble. He got 5 blocks last game, so I just don't trust that. Like he's solid against blocks, as we can see here, but 5 in 1 game is a lot. That's 10 extra points there for Horford. So I would be cautious with chasing him. 5,700 is still a solid price tag, but we know there's times where he's not aggressive. So if he has one of those games where he's not aggressive and he's not getting a ton of blocks, if he's super, super chalky, he could end up hurting you if he's like 40 plus, 45% plus owned. So keep that in mind, but I still think he's a solid play. But I'd rather get to, these three guards, whether it's Brogdon, Smart, or White. It really comes down to ownership, as I said the past couple of games. I think Smart's going to be the lowest owned. He comes at the best for me just because he comes in at power point guard, shooting guard eligible. He's the cheapest by a few hundred. And I just like taking shots on guys who are in bounce back spots. And White has been struggling the past 6 games. They've been going to Brogdon. Smart's been actually doing decent as well. So I like Derek White here as a bounce back candidate. We'll have to wait and see what the ownership is, but I really like all three guards. All three look great. It really just comes down to ownership. Like if you want to get chalky, go with the chalky one. If you want to get contrarian, I do think Derek White will be the contrarian one. As I mentioned, I do like Robert Williams, Grant Williams a good amount, especially if there's foul trouble. These two will be the main guys off the bench there. So they're definitely some very solid value plays there that I actually do like for this slate tonight. And then moving on to the second game here. Obviously, a very, very popular game to target and stack. Devin Booker just been playing out of his mind. I mean, once again, expect 40 minutes, expect him to shoot 20 plus times. I mean, he's been shooting insane the past pretty much the whole playoffs. Like, this dude is not missing shots. He's been ultra aggressive, getting rebounds, getting assists. So, if you think this continues for Devin Booker, definitely lock him in. I'm just a little hesitant, little hesitant on him continuing this streak here, but by all means, he looks like a great play. I prefer getting to Kevin Durant. Um, he's once again playing 45 minutes, same thing. You're going to shoot 40, 20 plus times. He's actually been struggling when it comes to his shot. Like he hasn't really been shooting that well. As you can see here, 37%, 38%, 1 of 5 from three, 2 of 12. So if we get a game where Kevin Durant's actually on, he could have a massive, massive game. So I slightly prefer Kevin Durant, even though Booker's been way, way better. Just because I do think Booker will come back down to earth. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't. He's been playing unbelievable, but for that reason alone, I just think I slightly prefer Kevin Durant. But Booker looks great. Aiden, I think, is a very, 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 very solid contrarian option here. Once again, I do think a lot of people will go to the 3-star build, so they won't be able to pay up for a decent amount of contrarian options in mid range, like a Maxi, like a Aiden. And I think Aiden's a very, very solid play. Obviously, the big risk here with Ayton is can he stay out of foul trouble? If he can go for 30, 35 plus here, even 40 plus. Like if he's having a decent game, like he can easily put up 20 and 10. It's just can he stay out of foul trouble? If he can, he should see close to like 33, 35 minutes. So for that reason alone, I think he's a very, very solid play tonight. At 5,600 as a contrarian play. Campaign, I still think once again is a very solid play. 30 minutes, 25, he just can't hit a shot. So they kind of been limiting him a little bit. But like, if he gets hot, they will extend him to 30 plus minutes and he can go for like 25 plus points, 4,900. So once again, I think he's a solid play. He's been chalked the past 2 nights, burned a lot of people, which have been me. But I still think he's a solid upside there. In terms of the value is all over the place. Like Shamit and Landau, I'm assuming are going to be the most popular just because of Shamit's last game. He played 25 minutes and then 30. Actually did decent last game. And then Landau has been the backup center the past 2 games, been playing 20 plus minutes. Actually been decently productive as well. So I expect a lot of people to jam these two in. I'm not going to chase there. We know that the Suns, they just go with whoever's playing the best. So if Shamit ends up doing bad or gets in foul trouble, not hitting the shots, they will go to a Warren. They will go to a Koji. They will go to a Ross. Same with Landau. Like if he comes in, if Aiden actually stays out of foul trouble, Landau will only see like 10 to 12 minutes. Even if Aiden gets in foul trouble, Landau could come in. He could play bad. He can get in foul trouble. He could just not be productive, and you're holding hands with like 50 plus percent owned, Landau. So for that reason alone, I really don't know. If you want to take a dart throw, I'd say just go with lower owned ones. I prefer going with like a probably like a Koji or TJ Warren or maybe Ross over like a Shaman who should be the most popular. And then same thing with Landau. I don't know if I'll get to him just because he's going to be super, super popular. I just I don't want to hold hands with half the field because I do think Aiden will have a good game tonight. On to the Denver Suns side. Jokic, if you can pay up for him, I mean, he's been going off 73, 80, 76. I mean, they can't stop this man. He's shooting about 30 times a game, playing 40 minutes. So he looks fantastic at 11-2 if you feel great with the value and want to spend up for him. Jamal Murray, I think, will be probably the more popular one. And it makes sense because he's $3,000 cheaper. He's playing the same amount of minutes, 40. He's shooting the ball pretty much the same amount. He's just obviously a little less productive when it comes to the rebounding and assists, but he can score. He can still get rebounds and assists. He can get some steals. So I think Jamal Murray looks great at 8,100. I still think he's way too cheap. Like with his production and minutes, he should be like 9,200, if not more. Like I don't know why he's so cheap. I'm assuming he'll be super, super popular today, but it's hard not to really, really like him there at that price tag. Aaron Gordon, MPJ, as I mentioned, like Maxi, like Tobias Harris, these two are both very solid contrarian pivot plays. Gordon will be the lowest owned of these two here on the Denver side, but we know he's upside. MPJ has actually been very solid the past two games. Got in foul trouble that last game, but still played 41 minutes. Did not shoot well and still went for 36 because he went for 11, 10, and 4. So yeah, we know he has upside there. It's just can he hit his shots? Can he stay out of foul trouble? If he can, usually he has decent games. I want to expect back-to-back double doubles with him getting 4 assists as he averages 1 assist per game, but we know he's decent upside, so I'm assuming he'll be decently popular. I like Bruce Brown at 4,500. Two quiet games here, 21. Actually, a few quiet games, 17 and a half, then 21, then only 15. But if he's playing well, he will play 25 minutes, maybe get extended to 30. So he's a solid option. KCP is a solid option for value play as well. He's been playing solid minutes, hasn't been doing much, but he's a decent value play that's getting those minutes, so that's key. And then Jeff Green, okay play, punt play, not seeing much minutes, and that is the slate breakdown. So I'll have updated, core plays and kind of my lineup build on my Patreon link down below. But as of right now, here are the early core plays: Derek White, Kevin Durant, Jamal Murray, and Jalen Brown. So if you guys like the video, make sure to hit that like button. Check out my price fix video after this. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.